Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you ever so much for joining us again for the Dare Dallas webinar. First of all, thank you ever so much for everyone that joined us last week for the webinar on the House of Gucci, where I suppose if you couldn't tell, I was quite keen on that, and obviously we had quite a good time talking about that with Rachel. Now, this week, as ever, very happy to welcome my good friend Jonathan Horwich. Now, Jonathan, last week I read your incredible article on NFTs. It really kind of, for me, really kind of put a simple spin on it and made me understand them a little bit better than, to be perfectly frank, I had done before. And thank you ever so much for joining me this week to go through it. So, Jonathan, what on earth is an NFT?
It's a very good question. I'm pleased you said you managed to understand it. I spent some time trying to boil down the constituent parts, and it's sort of complex but simple. The technology is complex, but the idea is a simple one, not dissimilar to Pokemon cards. And sometimes even you talk brilliantly about Rolex watches, the nuances, the difference between one and another, its date, it's the things that it has. So really it's a non-fungible token. So if I give you a fiver, you give me a fiver, a fiver is perfectly fungible. So we're sort of quits, as it were. Those two things are equal, whereas the NFT is non-fungible. It's unique, and therefore you can't do that with it.
Where did this idea for NFTs come from? Non-fungible tokens. Where did it start?
I think it comes out. It's born out of cryptocurrency.
Okay. I
think, in other words, the two are almost indivisible, if you like. But if you understand one, so it comes out of a community as well. What's interesting is that many of the people who buy and sell them, such as Snoop Dogg, so famous people, Jay-Z, all get into NFTs, but they're not alone in their bedroom doing that. They are out talking about what it is they bought with other people who have them. So there's a bit of a party atmosphere as well about the whole thing. And so they come out of cryptocurrency. The technology's been around since at least 2014, as far as I can work out, maybe before. And the idea was that you can offer images in significant numbers, and those numbers add up quite helpfully. So you've got a product. You don't have to be an artist, but you can be a graphic designer to produce them. And you could produce, let's say, 10,000 images. And at that stage, 2014, they probably would cost you not very much. And over time, people have really got into them, looking for the little special things. You don't have to worry about hanging them on the wall, because they don't hang on a wall.
No, I remember at one time, I don't know if it was Sotheby's, that were giving away an NFT with every purchase or something for one of their sales. Was it Sotheby's?
Yeah.
I can't remember which one it was. And nobody was taking it quite seriously. But I think that was obviously the same with cryptocurrencies a few years ago. Nobody was taking that seriously. But I think it seems to be based, and this is my understanding, Jonathan, and please do pick up if I'm incorrect on here, that the Ethereum platform seems to be the thing that everyone seems to be dealing in NFTs with.
Yeah, Ethereum seems to be the market leader as far as OpenSea, who's one of the major vendors, if you like, and you can also make NFTs through OpenSea. But it's not by any means the only one. There are others, and I guess you'd have to have that particular currency to buy and sell. So it's quite widespread. The generation thing. I mean, you're a young chap. I'm a bit older than you, but the target audience, if you like, is the university student who during downtime was trading Bitcoin or at least cryptocurrency on a daily basis. It's a purely natural progression then to pick up NFTs. It's just seamless. Okay. So it's a sort of something that people are more familiar with generationally. So probably it's 20 to 40 years old, with some exceptions for famous people maybe.
How do you go about creating an NFT, or how does one come about? It's obviously the process to this.
You can, I mean, basically you could, let's take, for example, Nelson Mandela.
Yes, and this is a fairly kind of new catalogue, isn't it? That's just come out this week. Which I can't imagine Nelson Mandela, as amazing as the chap was, ever thought that his artwork or anything to do with him could be an NFT.
No, it starts off with him doing 6 drawings of his time. That the series is called Robin Island. And they existed initially as drawings, 6 drawings, which are then turned into quite high quality lithographs, which are available on Etsy and let me think now, First Dibs and some other platforms. The individual prints are $15,000 each, and indeed you and I saw a couple of them on a valuation late last year. So they are around and about. But then now they've been issued as an NFT through Bonhams only on Wednesday last week. So really, à la minute, literally just last week. It was launched. They launched the edition or the drop at 7 o'clock on Wednesday morning. When I looked at, you and I were out. When I looked at the end of the day, it was sold out.
That's incredible, isn't it?
But the point really is that there's, we've all heard of buy one, get one free. Well, in this case, if you bought 5, you got the 6th one free. However, if you bought, so there's a reason for buying it. But if you bought 1 or 2, that was the full extent of what you got. So someone brilliantly is sitting, not only just creating them, yes, you make them, you need gas. That's basically like paying for electricity to create the bandwidth to make them. But once you've done that, then your expenses are over. And there are a number of people making NFTs at night using rather like you might put your dish, what is it called? Not Lucky 7, it's
Economy 7. Yeah,
Economy 7. So there is, believe it or not, an Economy 7 version of NFTs. So there's people who are a bit low on cash can make them at night. It costs less. And you've got to do it. They need to be coded. So they're coded images, but that's not new. And so if you, I talked to a guy not that long ago who's producing NFTs, and he finally hired someone to do the coding so he can focus on creating the images, which makes sense. But at the beginning, you probably need to do it all yourself.
Okay. So I think from my kind of understanding, again, Jonathan, please do pick me up on this, is that the art world has almost been kind of taken over by it to a certain degree, and a lot of these things now obviously auction houses are picking up on. And whilst you say it doesn't necessarily need to be art involved, what it is obviously dependent on graphics and graphic designers and the art world.
I think you're right. I'm just debating in my head whether it really is art. It depicts art, but it's also other things. There are new elements happening all the time with NFTs to stand out in my mind. I went to a meeting about a month ago, and there was a young, what I call a young person, who understood everything about everything and was very sweet and answered my very stupid questions. And he said he'd been invited to join an NFT or to buy an NFT for $10. That seems pretty reasonable, doesn't it? And that would get you a share in a golf course development in Florida.
Interesting. Okay.
And he said, well, okay, it's $10. There was no promise that the golf course would ever be built. There was no indication. The only thing that you got was your $10. And I said, well, how many NFTs were available? He said 1 million. So they sold within 24 hours 1 million NFTs at $10 each. And that's it.
$1 million was then in their back pocket, ready to make the golf course.
And so they were going to make the golf course or not make the golf course, or so there's that. And also now funding for films is also being done via NFTs as well. So it's branching out like a sort of, slightly in a haywire way, but it begins to make sense. And there's one particular NFT I found that was sold not for a fixed price, not at an auction, but as a shareholding. So the NFT itself was offered and split into 91,000 shares. It makes sense. So basically, whoever signed up for that NFT was a shareholder. So they opened it and closed it. And when at the end of it, there were 91,000 people, all of whom had spent I don't know how much money. So it on that basis, it is arguably the most expensive NFT, more so than anything else you've read about, by virtue of 91,000 multiplied by the amount they paid for their share, if that makes sense.
Just about, I think. As I say, I'm trying to. I kind of get the process here, John.
Yeah, you're buying, offering shares, if you like, as much as art. So you get to see the image, but it's really changing rapidly, almost sort of week to week. There's new things happening.
It's a remarkable, and I don't want to call it a phenomena, but effectively that's what it is. Now, with the NFTs as they are you allowed to edit them? Are you restricted to what you can do with them once you buy it? I mean, is there a copyright? There are so many questions, I think, that I could probably go through.
Yeah, let's say you buy an NFT. For the most part, you don't own the copyright. You can't alter it in any way, shape, or form, and you can't publish it. You can look at it, and indeed, so can everybody else, which might or might not be something that you feel is appropriate. But in the same way that you could see it in your wallet on your phone, which is where it's kept, then everybody else can see it as well. You could, I suppose, print it off and hang it on the wall if you wanted to. But then again, talking about new things, recently, the last 6 months, forum auctions had NFTs which are generated by artificial intelligence, AI, and the sale didn't do very well because people felt possibly that they'd rather it be produced by an artist. However, the other bonus with the forum auction was that you could edit them, and you did get all the rights, so you got the copyright. The other thing to bear in mind is that there is a built-in artist resale right, forever and ever, amen. So every time an NFT is sold, until the end of time, not just within copyright, then there's 10% will revert back to the not to the owner, but the maker. So,
okay, so the original creator of the NFT.
Exactly. So it's quite a money spinner if you think about it.
Well, absolutely. But does that mean, let's say you made an NFT of something with not necessarily an image that you had created, but you had created the NFT?
Yeah.
Does that mean that you will get that 10% back every time it gets resold?
Yeah. Yeah. No matter how many times it's resold, and that's secured through blockchain, which we've not spoken about, but people will understand it's the same medium which registered cryptocurrency.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if we talked a little bit beforehand about crypto punks, the series. So you look at that. So if you own crypto punks, which is owned by a group of people, there are 10,000 of them. So the people who made them, every time one is sold, that's 10% in their front or back pocket, wherever you want to put that 10%. So you then have an inherent revenue stream so once you've sold them, then the 10,000 effectively were sold. But the continuation is the resale right, which comes back to you.
And you'll get $1,000 every time it's traded again.
Yeah, every time it's traded, and there's 10,000. They trade minimum $300,000. So
we're not doing too badly out of this. I mean, is the secondary market big for these things?
Yeah, it is big for these things. I mean, the original price back in 2017 when they were launched was $75. And
wow, somebody's doing very, very well.
Yeah, they've gone from $75 to $300,000 since April 2017.
So the NFTs that are being traded most, and obviously our work predominantly is valuing items, but is there a way of valuing NFTs?
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about this. Yes, there must be a way to know the cost price, and to know, in the same way that cryptocurrency goes up and down, so does the value of NFTs, and they go up and down in response to the value of cryptocurrency, if that makes sense. So if Bitcoin goes up or Ethereum goes up, so do NFTs. And equally, NFT prices are affected by the numbers that are sold.
So are they valued in terms of it is worth 1 Ethereum or something like that? And then
Yeah.
it is basically defined about how it performs and how Ethereum performs against the pound or something along those lines.
And you get, yes, and you see if you're looking at them, sometimes they will give a guide price similar to an estimate you see at auction, but in Ethereum. So guide price 60 to 80 Ethereum or something like that. So if you like, valuing them becomes possible. Insuring them is
you can only in the same. Well, yes, I was going to say, because you can't insure
not very easily. No,
I'm sure that's probably to come, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, I think
I would imagine it will happen.
I think there's a way around it. I mean, if you and I sat down and worked out how you'd insure them, then there's probably a way to do it. But you could value them, yes, by looking at the recent sale prices. Some, they've been made all the time, so some are brand new. But you could argue that CryptoPunks and Bored Apes are the old masters.
The Bored Apes thing seems to be kind of one of the biggest kind of things going at the moment, but there was some problems with that, wasn't there, Jonathan, where some of them were stolen. Now, how do you steal an NFT? Or more to the point, instead of how do you steal it, what happens when one is stolen?
There's one example of a gallery owner in New York who, over the weekend, all of his NFTs are stolen from his wallet. So on a Friday they get stolen. By Monday he realizes they've been stolen. His wallet is empty. I sound like I know about wallets. I'm not sure I do, but I'm just telling the story. He found out that his NFTs had been stolen, but because his account was hacked, the various selling platform, quite reasonably, he was identified as him, not the thief.
So he is in effect a rightful owner. So does he get that back then, or how?
No? Well, that was the problem. That indeed there is no body overseeing it. There's no central register. Although Bitcoin registers them, because the guy's account was hacked. As far as blockchain was concerned, he was him, not someone pretending to be him.
I hate to say that I have experience in this, but unfortunately I do.
It's this basic fraud.
Yeah, I did have some cryptocurrency, and then about 3 or 4 months ago, I checked my account and it had been completely cleared out.
Yep.
But according to the platform that I was using, I won't give their name, but according to the platform that I was using, it was me that had done it because I'd given the information, despite the fact that it had been hacked, and that was their only opinion, and there was no safeguarding whatsoever, and that was it, and it was gone, and there's nothing more you could do about it. And so at this point, I thought, okay, well let's stick to watercolors. But it's
you describe exactly the same thing that happens with NFTs, and everyone you talk to, and I've talked to a number of people, they all have. I mean, but they're still in it. That's the interesting thing. They've not said, oh, well, sod that, I'm not doing that anymore. So I think their reasoning is that they have either made money, or indeed the things they've managed to retain are worth more. So they're in it for the long term. One young man I spoke to had reported the theft to the police, who, to their credit, did try to help him. And they didn't dismiss him, but in the end said, well, there's nothing you or we can do. But the guy who's had his wallet stolen, effectively, he did get, I think he lost about $2.5 million worth of NFTs, and contacted OpenSea and 2 or 3 of the people who had sold them, and they managed to get some of them back. So it wasn't a total loss. He got about half of them back again, but still some are gone forever. Nifty Gateway got some back. So they're self-policing, if that's one way of describing it, but there's no financial conduct authority looking after NFTs, unfortunately.
You go back to the wallet scenario, Jonathan. I mean, how do you display things if they're stored in your wallet? You're saying you can print them off, you can do something.
You can print them off. If you go on to OpenSea or Nifty Gateway, there's a facility there. They do a lot of Q&As, and it says, how can I display? So you can arrange to have, so you can display them on your PC, you can display them on other devices, and you can add frames. So it's a bit like gaming. I'm not very familiar with gaming, but you can buy stuff to enhance your image. So you could buy a frame for your NFT, for instance, to enhance it. You can obviously look at them, but there is a way you could create a slideshow, which I guess you could show to people. That's all that sort of stuff. And Beeple, who's Mike Winkleman, who we've not yet spoken about, he has begun to produce an object which goes with the NFT. Most recently, what looks like a space telephone box, which displayed the NFT on a running loop inside. So you look at it's a cross between Doctor Who's TARDIS and the telephone box, but with bigger windows. and you look at it, and as you look at it, it plays the NFT, which is a moving image.
Is it a bit, Jonathan? Are we in the midst of the Wild West at the moment when it comes to things like this? It strikes me as something that is, whilst we say self-regulating, is still fairly highly unregulated and quite a risky proposition, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. I think that what do they say when you invest money? Your investment may go up and down, or the capital that you began with may well, the chances are that the capital you begin with NFTs could totally disappear. But it's a game if you've got if you've got millions of dollars, then probably you probably will make money out of NFTs simply because you could go for the more established names, but there is risk. Yes, you could just wake up one morning and it's all gone, and there's very little, if anything, you could do about it. I think
this is dependent on whether you're hacked, whether the value of it just completely drops out. There's no again. And you know, this is where I'm probably very wrong on this. It doesn't appear like you are actually owning anything, but you'll probably correct me on this.
I can see. I mean, I'm not familiar with Pokemon cards. I'm not familiar with cryptocurrency, but all of those things. You look at cryptocurrency now. The meeting I was at, they were talking about crypto, and one of the people present at the meeting was a solicitor who had conducted, or at least been part of a purchase of a property, a house, using cryptocurrency. So as that becomes more mainstream, then I think bit by bit. So I think looking at owners of NFTs or people who are thinking about buying, you're not quite on the floor, because the floor probably was 2014, maybe 2017. And some have, you think of how much more valuable some of these are now than they were before. The ship hasn't sailed, but it's more established. So there are opportunities there. I'm not a total skeptic. I can see how another generation, my children or young people would see it as perfectly normal. I think we have, as art experts, if you like, and antiques and fine art experts, we may have a mental block about how to embrace these things. But bear in mind, a lot of the young collectors are forming groups. So you look at Bored Apes. It's not just owning the Bored Apes. There are social benefits. You meet like-minded people, i.e. rich people. So you go to an event and there's Jay-Z and there's other celebrities. It's similar to sneakers in some ways. There's and out of Bored Apes, there are about 40 of them with particular attribute, a gold scarf, I think it is, or something like that, which makes those, above all else, the most valuable and sought after. And so you talk to people about owning them. So you get bragging rights as well. If that floats your boat, then you get to brag a bit too.
But is there anything stopping other people from printing your image and putting it on their wall?
Not at all. No, there's nothing at all. So I could print, all of the NFTs I want and stick them on my wall. I don't have copyright, but neither do I, as the owner of the NFT, have the copyright. The copyright sits with the NFT maker or artist,
who is taking 10% every time he makes something.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, there's retain. So I read something before. I just came across something before our discussion now, and I can't work out which way around it is, but CryptoPunks and Bored Apes, one is thinking about buying the other.
Wow. Okay. So that's always going to be an interesting.
That's a big deal. So you've got the ownership of so you've got the copyright, but you've also got the resale rights. So depending on how many of those 10,000 is sold on an annual basis. And of course, you've got the opportunity to make new editions as well. So there's a huge revenue stream there, which is fairly reliable.
No, absolutely. No, it seems remarkable. Now, I'm presuming, Jonathan, these things aren't regulated in any way by the FSA or anything like that, and it is, you know, you're on your own basically, aren't you?
Yeah, you absolutely. You I think you put it very well just earlier when you said, is it the Wild West? Well, absolutely it is. You're on your own. There is no one to go and see. You can, as I said earlier, the police, you can ring the police. There isn't very much they can do, but maybe it just makes you feel better. It is literally the Wild West, but I would say in the not too distant future, it will become more mainstream, and there may be a way of protecting or insuring. I don't think you could. There are specialist insurers for NFTs. You could just Google them, and there's about 3 or 4. Okay. But I don't think they're offering you a loss in value for the theft. They're offering you support in tracking them down, finding them, getting them back again. So that it's a bit like a security protection policy, like a PPI type thing.
But you're almost relying on that person not having the same, you know, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Now, just back to a practical point here, and something that obviously a lot of people will be concerned about is the tax implications of these things. Where does it land with HMRC?
It lands. HMRC have been very clever about, well, you know, you might think they're not on the ball. Well, they absolutely are. They have a cryptocurrency and which includes NFTs wing to them, and they've nicked 2 or 3 people who then already. So they've sent bills out for cryptocurrency trading. So you and I, if we make money, that's fine. But if we make a capital gain on our NFTs, and presumably the same is true on Bitcoin trading or crypto coin trading, then it does form part of our tax return. The same is true here in the UK and in the US and anywhere else where there's a tax. So it's. I think the worrying part of it is money laundering. I think that's that seems to be, and that isn't really. It's sort of a government issue. It slightly slips between the revenue and someone else, but that's now coming under the radar as well.
No, it seems cryptocurrencies are being basically acknowledged by the establishment in terms of the fact that, you know, these things are ways that people can move around currencies and you know.
Yeah, so they to their credit, the revenue are protecting our interest, I suppose, as citizens, aren't they, and regaining the tax. So I was quite surprised by that. I thought maybe it was something that they were thinking about, but absolutely not. They're on it. So there's no hiding place.
Jonathan, I mean, it's been a remarkable conversation, and I think for, you know, a first introduction, certainly from my point of view after reading your article, this has been a really good kind of way of establishing what they are and what they do. Is there anything currently that you think, or coming to market, that you think, you know, would be a good investment, or anything that is interesting that's coming up currently?
Yeah, I think that the people that seem most happy with this arrangement are those who bought NFTs from artists that they have met in person.
Right, okay.
So that might be something to think about. It doesn't mean they're any more expensive, and indeed, if anything, it's a bit broader. So a couple of people I've spoken to, a young lady who has bought 5 NFTs, a young man who I think owns about 15. He's added them to what you might call a broader investment portfolio, including pension and other investments. He's written them down at 0 in his book. So as far as he's concerned, they're worth nothing. And if they're worth something, then that's a bonus. He says that works for him because he's not worried about it all the time. And the young lady has been slightly different. She went to an exhibition, albeit virtual, in central London, and the maker of the NFT, who is a painter, was standing talking about his art and talking about his projects. The ones you could see, the ones he's thinking about, was very happy to talk to the buyers, including the young lady I spoke to, and has maintained contact with them all, and vice versa. So he advises them when the next thing is dropping, what he's working on. So it becomes a two-way conversation, a bit like a club or in the same way that you might belong to to the Royal Opera House or the Royal Academy. It becomes a group of like-minded people, and they seem quite happy with that. That they are not as bothered by the values day to day as the community it offers them, and the being part of something. So and you know that if you look at somewhere like Tate Britain, their subdivisions, committees on African art and everything else, they're quite social, and indeed that's what people are looking for, I think.
It's fascinating, and so not what one would have expected 15 years ago to actually come about. The fact that you can own something that you can't do anything with theoretically other than print it and put it on your wall, but you'll never own the copyright to it. And I think that term you used very well is bragging rights. You know, you can say, well, I own this one and I own this one and I own this one, when theoretically somebody go, oh, what, this one on my phone, and go, oh, I'll just print that out because I can do that. It's a very, very interesting world, and I'm sure that we're going to see over the next, you know, few years and maybe the next couple of decades or so, a world that really is reliant on this and cryptocurrency, the way crypto is going as well. It's remarkable. So Jonathan, thank you ever so much again for joining me today. It's obviously been a pleasure and, you know, a real eye-opener in terms of the world of NFTs. And I hope some of our clients today will actually have got a better view on it, you know, albeit in the way that, you know, obviously I'm not an expert in it, and trying to kind of glean a little bit more information from yourself, Jonathan.
Yeah.
It's been fascinating. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan, thank you ever so much for joining us again for the Dare Dallas webinar. And we will be in touch very soon. Take care. Thanks again, Jonathan.
Okay, bye.